35th President, Dr. Kenneth W. Sharp. Thank you, Dr. Sharp.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you know that one of the immediate concerns that you have when you're told you're going to be the president of the Southern Surgical is, who's the first vice president? Are they a hawk? Are they a dove? And I was told it's Ronnie Stewart. And I said, oh, thank you. So that was a most generous introduction. So I'm here this morning to represent the Southern Surgical Association. I've been a member for 35 years. It is truly the epitome of my career. We're going to talk about mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship. The obligatory disclosure side, I have no financial conflicts here. As a matter of fact, mentorship has no RVUs and no industry or NIH support. It does pay in great personal satisfaction. So, Dr. Cameron reminded me that I had to have some history in this talk. I said, I've already got a slide. So, as Ronnie mentioned, my first meeting that I attended of the Southern Surgical Association was right here at the Homestead in 1987. It was the centennial celebration of the Southern Surgical. The president was my boss, Dr. John Sawyers from Vanderbilt, and each one of us received a small plaque at that meeting, and this is a picture of it. This is in commemoration of the founding of the Southern Surgical Association in 1887. The centennial, because you probably can't read this, was held in the Homestead Hotel, Hot Springs, Virginia, December 6th to the 9th, 1987. Now here's a great stat. This was the 28th meeting of the association at the Homestead. The first meeting of the Southern Surgical Association at the Homestead was in 1909. We've had 16 subsequent meetings here, and so this is the 44th meeting of the Southern Surgical at this hotel. And I hope you'll agree with me that the renovations look magnificent. I think that, and don't forget, at the reception tomorrow night, if it's not raining or snowing, step out onto the terrace outside the foyer and look to the brick wall on your left, and you'll see in life size this plaque. So I'm going to talk about mentors, coaches, sponsors. Very simply, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to tell you what I did talk about. Mentors talk with you. Coaches talk to you. Sponsors talk about you. So you have to have some slides of your mentors and advisors over the years. So I have them. So on the left is Dr. George Zeidema. Dr. Zeidema became chief of surgery at the age of 36 in 1964, succeeding Dr. Alfred Blaylock. Many of Dr. Blaylock's trainees felt he would fail miserably. He was very successful and changed aspects of American surgery. He died in 2020 at the age of 92. A true gentleman. He taught me a lot of grace. He certainly treated me with grace. This middle picture is one of my true mentors, Dr. John Sawyers. Dr. Sawyers was born and raised in Iowa to a farmer whose father was a surgeon. John did not like working on the farm during the summer, so he decided medical school was his path out of the pastures. I met Dr. Sawyers in the summer of 1970, gotta get this right here, 1976. I went to Vanderbilt to do a 9-week sub-internship under Dr. John Sawyers at the old Nashville General Hospital. He said, Ken, I can't pay you anything, but he gave me a 24/7 call room to live in, the 24/7 call. Since I was in the call room, if they needed somebody to hold retractors, I was ready, willing, and able. And I got 3 meals a day, 7 days a week in the hospital cafeteria, so I ate, slept, and drank surgery for that summer. And really, really got to admire Dr. Sawyers. He's an outstanding clinical surgeon, a superb academic surgeon, not a basic researcher, but did some of the first, probably the only, randomized clinical trials in surgery in Nashville in the 1960s. He was a mentor and an advisor. He gave me an assignment when I started. He said, Ken, I expect you to teach the medical students. I expect you to be an excellent surgeon. I expect you to join the Southeastern Surgical. I expect you to be active in the college and the Tennessee chapter. And I want you to join the Southern Surgical. He gave me goals. And finally, Dr. Philip Burns. Dr. Sawyers died in 2016 at the age of 92. Dr. Sawyers was, like I say, he was clearly my paternal mentor and role model. Philip Burns, fortunately, has not passed away. Thank you, Philip, for not dying on me. We got to know each other through the Southeastern Surgical Congress, and he has truly served every role for me. Role model, mentor, advisor, sponsor, and I owe a lot of my progress in surgery to Philip Burns. Coach Cameron, and this is my second history slide, John. See, I've got Dr. William S. Halstead peeking over his left shoulder. This is the voice I hear in my head when I'm struggling with a resident in the operating room. Geez, Ken, that looks like a dog chewed on it. I really hardly need to introduce any of these folks. These are sponsors and connectors. I'll briefly mention connectors at the end of the talk. But these are people who have nominated me for organizations, who've pushed me to become a leader. Everybody recognizes Dr. Britt, Dr. Burns, and Dr. J. Patrick O'Leary. Now, Dr. O'Leary has been a superb sponsor for me in the American College of Surgeons. He's nominated me for every possible position. If there was a dog catcher in the ACS, I was proposed. And finally, I have some inspiring leaders. Dr. Seth Karp, chair of the section of surgical sciences at Vanderbilt. Dr. Carmen Solorzano, great, Carmen, I blew it. Carmen Solorzano, who's the chair of the Department of Surgery. They've been great leaders. I have the two best bosses I've ever had in my years at Vanderbilt. Dr. Karp has an incredibly busy job, but finds time to lead with affirmation. Dr. Solorzano runs a department of general surgery with a lot of unruly surgeons, but has led with thoughtfulness and kindness. So, and I'll tell you, they're also very in tune with the new generation. I went to TikTok to get these pictures. And finally, inspiration. Dr. Grace Rosicki is probably the main inspiration I had in this talk. I met Grace in 1984 when she was a resident at UT Knoxville. I've followed her career closely. We're 2 days apart in age. She's been a friend. She's been a guide, a mentor. Grace gave her presidential address at the Southeastern Surgical in 2012 on mentorship. I went, aha, there is a name and a job description for what I do. I didn't know that beforehand. So I appreciate what you've done for me, Grace. I know you're in the audience somewhere. Okay, and then finally, you have to thank your family. I'm very honored to be your president. Thank you to my family, my daughters here, who are amazing, successful young women. I couldn't be prouder. I've got 2 sons-in-laws, and then I've got Jackson and Janie, who are doing really well so far. And I got to thank Jane, my wife. This is a picture of us at a recent wedding. You know the old saw about behind every great man, there's a woman? Beside every great wife, there's a good man. So thank you, Jane. You've been by me for better or for worse for all these years. And then finally, just again, I have to thank John Sawyers for kickstarting me in my career. So, let's start with mentorship. A mentor is an experienced person who guides a less experienced person, building trust, modeling positive behaviors. Mentor It's a verb. I'm going to mentor so-and-so in their career. It's a noun. Somebody here is a mentor. And it's a proper name. Who was mentor? Anybody know? Nobody's raising their hand, okay. So mentor was the man that, there we go. That Odysseus chose to take care of his son Telemachus while Odysseus went on his odyssey. So Telemachus was mentored by Mentor to imbue him with kindness, grace, knowledge, valor, and all the good positive attributes. But Odysseus trusted Mentor to do this for his son. It's also said that the goddess Athena came to inhabit Mentor's body during some of the Odyssey and was there to imbue Telemachus with grace, wisdom, and godly virtues. That's a lot to measure up to, and I suspect nobody in this audience as a mentor is inspiring very many godlike virtues. What are the qualities or the traits of a good mentor? You're available. This is a little bit like, what's the traits of a good young surgeon? Affable, available, affordable. Mentors are generally affordable because we can't charge for our services. But a good listener, being a good listener is absolutely key. The mentor has to be respected and must be respectful of the trainee or the mentee. They need to be non-judgmental. When a trainee tells you something fairly shocking, you gotta keep your mouth shut. They're empathetic. They're trusted. You gotta be able to maintain confidentiality. Trainees may tell you things that should not be relayed to others. Being a good communicator is obviously needed. The mentor must be motivated, but also must be a good motivator. This is a term I learned during the course of the last 10 years or so. I hadn't really understood this, but once I started trying to look into some of the qualities of mentorship and so forth, was mentors are said to have generative concern. Good mentors exhibit a common personality trait in which they are interested in caring for young and less experienced individuals. Strongly related to traits of openness, emotional stability, and agreeableness. It's intrinsic. It is said this is something you're born with or you're not. You can't acquire this. I don't know if I believe that fully or not, but the psychologists believe it to be true. By the way, I think for the non-surgeons in the audience, anytime I say the word surgeon, mentee, trainee, protege, substitute the word spouse, son, daughter, mother, father, brother, sister. Most of what I'm going to say today applies equally well to parenting and marriage. Mentees are also termed proteges. I don't like either term. I think mentee sounds kind of weird. Proteges, that sort of sounds like we're trying to make somebody in your own image, which we're not trying to do. We want them to be successful, but I don't want them looking like me. Most of them don't want to look like me. Now, a good mentee or a good protege is similar to the traits of a good mentor. They're motivated, they're ambitious, they're enthusiastic. If you meet somebody to talk about their career and they have no goals, they have no ambitions, they don't really need a mentor. It's hard for me to motivate somebody like that. And if you meet with somebody who is 4 or 5 years into their career, they're doing their 8,000 RVUs per year, they're taking call once a week, they take the 3 weeks of vacation, and they're very happy where they are. They don't want to aspire to leadership or engagement. They don't really need a mentor. The protege must be committed. They must strongly want to succeed in their goals. They must follow up. Did you achieve what you aimed for? Being organized is a real plus, and obviously they must be honest. Some of the details. You can be a bad mentor, and there are plenty of them around. You can threaten the mentee, steal the credit for their academic work, their publications, their research. You can take over rather than leading. You must do this, you must do that, as opposed to, you need to aim for this, you need to aim for that. Dishonest, misleading, unrealistic, and jealousy is actually a problem. There are plenty of surgeons out there who would be jealous of the success of a mentee, who exceeds them in their academic achievements, their leadership opportunities and achievements, or their research accomplishments. So jealousy is the green monster here, and it's unfortunately common. You can be a bad mentee. If you're not interested, you might say you're complacent with your career. You can be unrealistic, or you can be dishonest. None of these satisfy the mentorship relationship. The relationship must be voluntary. You cannot assign an experienced faculty member to an inexperienced faculty member. Too often there's just two personalities that are at odds. Voluntary association is needed here. That's actually one of the trickiest aspects of establishing a good mentor-mentee relationship is how do you find the right person? You've got to kiss a lot of frogs to find the right one. The details, you need to meet regularly with your mentees. Establish your line of communication. How often are you going to talk? What channels will you talk through? Email, text, face-to-face and in person. Set barriers. Please don't call me at 2 a.m. to talk about your latest crisis in faith. I think this may be one of the most important things I tell my young trainees. Make goals. Write them down. They can be written in pencil. They don't have to be publicized. They don't have to be shared. Make goals. And what I then follow them up is this quote. If you aim at nothing, you have no goals, you will hit it every time. I don't know if you know where that quote came from, but it came from Zig Ziglar, who was a salesperson who went into the church and became a very famous public speaker, motivational speaker, wrote something like 20 books on leadership and motivation. But I just absolutely cherish this quote because I remember in times of my life when I was not aiming at anything, and boy, I hit it right on the head. Are mentors role models? Well, the answer to that is not necessarily. Role models are people we can identify with and who have qualities we'd like to have. Maybe they're in positions we would like to reach. So it's somebody we admire, but we may not establish a mentor-mentee relationship. And don't forget the inverse. People who you don't want as your mentors are people who you don't respect, are dishonest, and have those bad traits, and you don't want to be like them. There may be no personal relationship with a role model. The role model might be in the same profession or might even be historical. I want to be as famous as Michael DeBakey. But they don't have to be even in the same, I want to be as good a doctor as Sir William Osler. Mentors and role models may have professional qualities that are desired, but they also may possess personal deficiencies. Mentees may be the same thing. So if your mentor is a closet alcoholic, that may be not the quality you're looking for, but maybe that person still gives you good advice and wise counsel. Mentors and mentees are not born for each other. They are not assigned. I'll reemphasize that. This must be a voluntary relationship. You must establish the role. You interview people. Mentors interview mentees and vice versa. These people must establish a relationship that they desire. They become familiar with each other, and there's a sense of openness and approachability on both ends. Mentors must affirm. If you don't affirm the good qualities of your mentee, again, you're failing in your job. If you don't praise them for the accomplishments they make, the goals that they hit, you're not doing your job. A mentor has to establish rapport and be willing to listen. Like so many things in our lives, the more you listen and the less you talk, you're likely better off. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is probably more closely related to relationships in a marriage or in parenting than to academic inquiry. Yes, there have been scientific studies done and published over mentors and mentees and the qualities and the duties. But as I said earlier, when you talk about affirming, if you don't affirm your children, good job, Katie. Good job, Sarah. Then again, I'm not doing my job as a parent. Mentees may need multiple mentors. You might need somebody who is going to work with you on developing a bench research career. I'm not your mentor for that. You may need somebody who teaches you the quality of the techniques in research. You may need somebody who mentors you in the operating room, which we'll come to talk about coaching a bit. You may need somebody who's going to mentor you about the pros and cons of private practice, group practice, hospital employment, academic careers, leadership matters. You might need somebody different. Your mentor might be somebody who's never held a leadership position, but they're then unlikely to be able to give you a good path to leadership. And then obviously, a mentor should be interested in self-care and wellness of the mentee. What about mixing? Men and women. Can men mentor women? Can women mentor men? The answer to that is yes. Oil and water don't mix, but they can talk. I think there are numerous studies out there that actually show this, that men and women are not necessarily needed to be coached or mentored by someone of the same sex, race, gender, identity. I think that it's more important that the outcome of mentoring is based on a successful relationship and a successful series of meetings over a number of years. The outcomes of mentoring is a successful mentor-mentee relationship results in greater career satisfaction, more productivity, and greater personal satisfaction. Again, both for the mentor and for the mentee. Both should exhibit, joy with their relationship. You should be satisfied with the relationship you develop with a mentee. If that doesn't bring you great satisfaction, again, you don't need to be a mentor. Coaching. Coaching's a little different now. Everybody has a little different slight on these things. And so the terms mentors, coaches, sponsors, connectors, preceptors, proctors, all have some overlap. There are no black and white lines determining the difference between these things. Coaching in surgery is a relatively recent event. There's little discussion before 2010. And one of the first articles that caught my eye was Atul Gawande's article in the New Yorker in 2010, when he talked about, he is an endocrine surgeon in Boston. He brought a senior partner in to watch what he was doing in the operating room, how he was teaching the residents to operate. And then after the operation was over, the coach and Atul would go out to the hallway and debrief. And he said the mentor would tell him, you're blocking the resident with your left hand. You're not showing them how to hold the needle driver, et cetera, et cetera. So that one really did catch my eye several years ago. Coaching is obviously heavily adopted in music and athletics. What pro golfer doesn't have a coach? What symphony violinist doesn't have a coach? What general surgeon has a coach? Well, I'm trying to think of one. So it's been a very slow development and acceptance in surgery. I'm not entirely sure why this is. I think it's coming down the pike. I think partly it is awkward at times. It's difficult to establish. It requires some humility on both sides and openness from the pupil and the coach. And I think one of the greatest things that we deal with in the operating room as young surgeons and senior surgeons is, what are the trainees and the OR staff going to think? Dr. Sharp has a coach in the room. What did he do wrong? Are they monitoring him? Can he keep his privileges? Good gosh. So, how do you coach? Again, very difficult in many ways. But again, the coach and the pupil or the trainee need to establish goals. It's essential. I want to learn to do a thyroidectomy better. I want to be smoother in sewing a blood vessel together. Again, it must be voluntary. Coaches that are assigned in the operating room are not appreciated. And coaching can be in a number of ways. Direct observation in the operating room is probably the most tried and true method. But guess what's coming down the pike? Well, obviously, since the initiation of laparoscopic surgery, I can review your video of your lap chole and say, boy, your left hand is terrible. You know, you can't use your left hand. Get with it. Or, Dr. Carla Pugh at Stanford University actually has now wearable sensors, and she can say, your left hand shakes. You're making too many movements with your right hand. You're not being deliberate with your movements, because she can post the movements and tell you where you're deficient in some of your technical things. But what's coming? Artificial intelligence. There are many programs now being developed that the machine will watch you do a lap chole, assess your technique, maybe even flash a red light when you're about to put a clip across the common duct. Now this sounds incredible to me. I can't believe it will occur, but I am assured by my robotic surgeon enthusiast that it's close. It's very close. I think that's going to be a fascinating development. I just don't know how to talk to a computer. You know, I want to talk to somebody and say, you know, look, you really didn't handle that very well with your resident in the operating room. You really didn't show them how to set up the retractors. You didn't show them how to hold that needle driver. And God, it comes back to me, that voice of somebody who said, geez, can't you hold that needle driver right? The voice that echoes through my head. The coach must be a master. Coach has to be an awfully good surgeon if you're talking about surgical technique. If they can't recognize surgical technique, or their own is pretty shoddy, they're not going to be an effective coach. Who should do it? Well, again, as I alluded earlier, you probably need different coaches for different skills. If you need coaching in writing a grant, don't come to me. If you need coaching on how to do a hernia repair, I'm your man. If you need somebody to help you with public speaking, I may or may not be the right person. If you need somebody who needs to help you with writing scientific papers, you got to find that person. So many different coaches for many different skills. Little different. This is a little different from what a mentor does. A mentor ought to be able to say to you, you need to learn how to write a surgical paper better. You need to learn how to sew better. You need to learn the anatomy of an inguinal hernia, okay? It doesn't necessarily require that they are watching you, like in the operating room. So I think in what I'm saying with who should do it, and that is most of us. And I think coaching is intrinsic to what we've done for the past century and a half. We have this system of graded responsibility for residents. And who is supervising that? Well, you can call an attending surgeon, you can call it professor, associate professor. But in truth, what are they doing? They're coaching you. And they're kind coaches, and they're hawks. Why not? Well, we want to do it because we want to improve surgical skills. And here again, you can substitute here. If you want to improve relationships with your wife, with your children, your skills in motivating your brother, your sister. So we want to improve surgical skills. We want to improve patient outcomes. And that increases value to the institution, to the surgeon, and most importantly, to our patients. We're going to use coaching to expand or develop perfection in methods that we're introducing. You definitely need experts when it comes to advancing the techniques and science of surgery. Well, why not? This is a real issue. Concerns over the value. I already do the best hernia repair at St. Elsewhere. Why do I need coaching? Well, sir, Maybe you do a really good hernia repair, but if it takes 3.5 hours, maybe you're not providing value to the institution or to the patient. Well, sir, the OR staff hates you. They think you're a jerk. The residents avoid operating with you. Maybe there's some value in coaching. It's hard to get across this because of the next line. Threats over authority and image. Are you telling me I need to improve? Who are you to tell me that? You're a lousy surgeon, Sharp. So, how do we get this across? All we'll summarize is say, with difficulty. There are real challenges to all of these roles, mentors, coaches, etc. Preceptors and proctors, again, a slightly different tilt to what they do. Preceptors and proctors have been more defined in the laparoscopic and in the robotic era than with the open surgical era. But preceptors are, you've got somebody sitting at the robotic console with you. The preceptor needs to define the goals and objectives. What's the preceptor here to do? What's the goal of the trainee? And again, a preceptor, like a coach, must have technical mastery and intense, broad knowledge of the operation, the subject, or whatever. And the line becomes fuzzy between, does a preceptor scrub in to help you with something you've never done before? Does a proctor scrub in? Well, in many cases, they don't. Because proctors, as we think of them in many cases, may be there to judge you. They might be involved with very high stakes decisions about you. Privileging, credentialing, indeed, doing that 3.5-hour inguinal hernia repair. Should we keep you credentialed here at St. Elsewhere to do this procedure? So these are not necessarily friendly relationships. So they don't have the same availability, affability, and warmth that a mentor relationship does. Now, I'm going to get towards the end here and talk about sponsors and connectors. And as I said at the very beginning, sponsors talk about you. They don't necessarily talk to you. These are 3 of the sponsors and connectors I've had over the years. As I mentioned, Dr. O'Leary has sponsored me, put my name up for everything short of dog catcher for the ACS. LD Britt has certainly sponsored me through this organization, through the American Surgical. Philip Burns, same way. Last night I told him I wanted to change the title of my talk from mentorship to raising American champion Herefords. And he was ready to spend the night with me doing it. So, a sponsor, and again, you see these lines are not bright lines. They're not bright divisions here. A sponsor and a mentor, isn't that pretty overlapping here? A sponsor is someone committed to the development of an individual. Sounds a lot like a mentor to me. Sponsors use their influence to make mentees more visible. Sponsors risk their reputations when recommending junior colleagues. If I have an excellent young faculty member who's being looked at an associate professor job at some other institution, and I highly recommend them, and they turn out to be duds, my reputation is hurt. Or I've just been a poor mentor, not understanding the capabilities of my mentee. Sponsors may not be directly visible to the mentee, and that is that you may a sponsor or a connector may recommend a junior faculty, for example, for a promotion, for a society membership, a society leadership position, and not even directly know that person. But they know of them, they know about them. Sponsors obviously must be selfless. They want to promote others. Connectors, again, a slight variation. Connectors are master networkers with extensive social and political capital. Okay, can you see LD Britt right now in your mind? They often have less direct personal relationship than mentors have with mentees. Matter of fact, that's routine. A sponsor and a connector will not have the same personal relationship that you have with a mentee. I think one of the interesting things about connectors is they're motivated by legacy. They want to promote their junior faculty, their junior colleagues. They want them to become successful, confident, and high achievers. Why? This is probably one of the more important parts of the talk as I'm coming down the last stretch. Everyone in this room has benefited from a mentor, a coach, a sponsor, an advisor, a role model. I guarantee you, everyone in this room has done this in some fashion or another. Mentors, why do they do it? Well, they want to leave a legacy. Why do mentees want to do it? They want to get better. They want to get better. And finally, I like this paraphrase. You can never control your own legacy. You can only leave your legacy for others. In summary, the mentor guides, the coach improves, the sponsor nominates, the connector empowers, but always mentee must benefit. Final thoughts. We're working here to ensure the success and the future of our profession. We need to ensure the success of our young surgeons. Who's going to operate on you when you get to my age? You better be sure you have done a good job with your trainees. And we owe younger surgeons our best efforts in training them, developing them, mentoring them to enable their success. Everyone benefits from a successful development of a young surgeon. The mentor gets great personal satisfaction. The young surgeon should be getting satisfaction, confidence, ability, enthusiasm, and importantly, this should benefit our patients, especially when I'm the patient. So, my last slide here. Mentorship gives great personal satisfaction in both ways. When it's done well, conducted well, successful, both parties, the mentor and the mentee, get terrific personal satisfaction. I have certainly had enormous satisfaction with my trainees over the years. And then finally, again, a paraphrase here. In each and every one of us, there's an ounce of mentorship, a seed of coaching, and a grain of sponsorship. Now, the disclaimer is your mileage may vary. You might have a grain of mentorship and a seed of sponsorship, but your involvement will have some variance of all these three characteristics and duties. So I thank you for the attention. This has been one of the greatest honors of my life to provide this address and be an officer in this organization. And I thank you for your attention. We're going to take a 10-minute break, sharp, and start the scientific session.